Sometimes it's sort of fun thing. Let me just check because I think she said she didn't like that. Okay, you can let me know. Yeah, but she didn't say that. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't think that
me eating out of
all of it.
not too much. I want the person drinking it.
Simone, yes? No, not Simone.
No, not so.
You do it on your own? Okay, then we'll just send it. We'll just send it.
विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्वताय नमो नमः। ओम नारायणाय नमः। गोविंदाय नमः। ओम मधुसूदनाय नमः।
Good morning, dear family and friends. I'd like to invite you to take your seats, and I'd like to call up the immediate family to the front to offer some flowers. That will be Manoj, Kumar, Kiran, Yulu, Dev, and Vishnu. So if the immediate family can come forward, please. morning once again, dear family and friends. If I may ask you to please take your seats. It is indeed with a very, very heavy heart that I welcome you here to pay your last respects to my dear beloved cousin Akisha, who passed away this week on Wednesday. My name is Akisha Welch. I was Akisha's first cousin. Akisha is the late wife of Graham Welch, mother to Kieran and Kiara. She was born in 1973 and passed on at a very young age. We are all very sad to say. She was also the dearly beloved daughter of the late Mr. Nandlal Raman and Mrs. Yasoda Raman. She leaves behind also two loving brothers, Kumar and Manoj Raman, and many aunts, cousins, friends and family who loved her dearly, more than words can ever express. Akisha grew up from very humble beginnings in Tongat, in Buffelsdale, where she matriculated from Buffelsdale Secondary School. She was always a top achiever at school, and I remember my dad was also one of her teachers at school, and used to always sing her praises about the kind of student she was. Not only was she excelled in academics, but she was also a wonderful human being and had a wonderful character, always pleasant to be around. After she matriculated, she went on to study accounting at the University of Durban, Westville, and eventually qualified, we're very proud to say, as a successful chartered accountant. She was also an excellent student at university, not just at school. She started a career as a consultant at Deloitte, a consulting firm, and then went on to further her career at various companies, the first one being the Mediterranean Shipping Company, or after Deloitte, the first one being the Mediterranean Shipping Company, and thereafter Spa, and then following that at Ilovo Sugar. Good to see some of her colleagues here also to pay their last respects to her. A very successful professional, not just in the financial field, but also in IT, and also risk and compliance management at Ilovo Sugar. My cousin was a truly humble and special human being. Conducted herself always with respect and humility. Also a devoted wife and amazing mother to two wonderful children, Kiara and Kieran. And to the immediate family, no words can express the pain we all feel and the grief we share with you on this very sad day. Akisha also loved animals very dearly. As a child, I remember when I used to visit the home in Buffelsdale in Tongat, the little dog Boomer, who was always around her and always with her. It's a mark of a special human being who also has love for animals, in addition to being the wonderful, respectful person that she always was. Dear family and friends, as sad as it is, it will be good for us to remember that our sister passed on during a very auspicious time in the Hindu calendar. Many of you will be aware that this week is Gita week, and today we celebrate as Hindus the birth of Lord Krishna. Despite our religion, it will be good to remember some of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita at a very sad time and sad occasion like this. And that is a reminder from Lord Krishna himself that although the body is temporary, the soul lives on. And the soul will always be there forever and ever and ever. No wind can dry it, no water can wet it, and no fire can burn the soul. It's only the physical body that the soul leaves behind on its passing. With that, family and friends, you may come forward to pay your last respects if you haven't done so already. And in a few moments, I will hand over to Panditji, who will chant a few prayers and mantras when he feels the time is right for that. Thank you. We will address you again later during the course of the morning. dear friends, it's my pleasure to call up Linda Naidu, who was a very close friend of Akisha as they were growing up, and also her best friend, to say a few words on her behalf. Linda.
Good day, ladies and friends. When Eulogy asked me to say a few words, it was such a bittersweet moment for me. I never imagined in a million years that I would be standing here today and being asked to speak about my best friend. I really don't know how to, nor if I can do this. I don't know how to stand there and speak about Akisha in the past tense. I will call upon all the strength I have to get through to the end. Akisha's always been my best friend, and in my heart she will remain my best friend. I honestly don't know how to live in a world which is not just a phone call away. Akisha and I grew up side by side, literally. We were next door neighbors, and from the moment we met, we just clicked. We went to primary school together, high school, university. Every chapter of my life has her in it. We weren't just friends, we were family. She called me bestie or Linz, and when she said it felt like home. We shared everything. The silly stuff, the serious stuff. We laughed until we cried, and we cried until we laughed. We knew each other's dreams, fears, heartbreaks, and secrets. She was the one person I could completely be myself. No pretending, no masks, just Akisha and I. From the first time she informed me about her condition, right up to her palliative care, she was courageous. But for us, watching her fight cancer was heartbreaking. She was in so much pain, and yet she never stopped fighting. From the moment she was diagnosed in 2022, she gave it everything she had. Every ounce of strength, every bit of hope. She fought for her children, for her husband, for her family, and she fought for herself. She was so brave, so unbelievably brave. Akisha was a dynamite, encased in a small package, full of energy, passion, and fire. She was larger than life. When she walked into a room, you felt it. Her laugh, her wit, her warmth, she lit everything up. She was a brilliant chartered accountant who earned every bit of her success through sheer hard work, perseverance, and talent. She didn't just rise through the ranks, she mapped her own path, and she did it with humility, grace, and quiet confidence. She was kind, generous, beautiful, inside and out. She loved her family fiercely. Her mom, her siblings, her husband, and her two gorgeous children, Keelan and Kiara. She lived for them. And she lived for moments, for laughter, for connection, for love. I feel gutted, like something has been ripped out of me, because the truth is, I will only ever have one best friend, one Akisha, and now she's gone. There's a line from the song, "Wind Beneath My Wings," that keeps playing in my head. Did you ever know that you're my hero? Akisha, you were my hero. You lifted me up so many times that I couldn't stand. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You were my safe place, my cheerleader, my sister. I don't know how to say goodbye to you, and I don't want to. But I will carry you with me always, in every laugh, in every tear, in every moment. I wish I could share with you. You were the wind beneath my wings, and now I hope you're flying free. finally free from the pain, surrounded by peace, and watching over all of us with that beautiful smile. I love you, bestie, always.
Thank you very much, Linda. If it's any consolation, know that we share your pain with you on this very sad occasion. Panditji will now take us through a few rituals. Over to Panditji.
Namaste all. You can join me in a few mantras, opening mantras. You may remain seated. ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्ष्यामामृततः मङ्गलं भगवान् विष्णु मङ्गलं गरुडध्वज मङ्गलं पुण्डरीकाक्षा मङ्गलाय तनो हरि Lord Krishna. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Ranta Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. All together, those who know the mantra, Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I, together with the Karta, shall proceed with certain specific rituals for the day. You may have some light background music to that if you wish. Jai Shri Krishna, and thank you for your attendance. First pinda, Om Vitaknama Vedistane Shavanimitke Brahmadevato Va Eshate Pindo Maya Kiyate Tavo Patishthitam नाहं मृतकनामा ॐ द्वादशे पान्ते नमतिको विष्णुदेवता वायशाते बिन्दो माया दीयते तव प्रतिष्ठितम् ॐ चत्वेरस्थाने केचिरनिमित्तक एषाते बिन्दो माया दीयते तव प्रतिष्ठितम् ॐ नमः वेतकनाम शमशान स्थाने विश्रन्ति निमित्तको भूतनामना रुद्रो देवतो वा एषा ते बिन्दो माया दीयते तव प्रतिष्ठितम् ॐ नमः मृतकनामा ॐ चीतास्थाने वायुनिमित्तको यमदेवतो वा एषो तो बिन्दो माया दीयते तव प्रतिष्ठितम् विसर्जन पिंडादानं ददामि ओम गंगा च यमुना च एव गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिंधु कावेरी जले अस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु ओम प्रेताय नमः ओम प्रेतस्खाय नमः ओम ओम प्रेतादीपाय नमः ओम प्रेता भूमिपाय नमः ओम प्रेताहत्रे नमः ओम गंगा च यमुना च एव गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिंधु कावेरी जले अस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु ओम नैनं चिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेद्यन्त्यापो na shoshayanti marutaha. The soul cannot be cut by any weapon, nor can it burn by any fire, nor can it be wet by water, nor can it be dried by the wind. Death is simply a change of body for the soul, and the idea is aptly driven home by reference to our everyday experiences as given in Bhagavad Gita with the following verse. Om vasansi jirnani yata vihaya navani krinati naro parani tata sharirani vihaya jirnanyani sanyanti navani dehi. Just as a person casts off worn garments, worn on a daily basis, and puts on new ones, so too the embodied soul casts off its body at its appropriate time and shall enter into another body at its appropriate time. Om Narayanaaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha, Om Madhusudanaaya Namaha. Tulsidevaaya priyaaya kesavasacha Vishnu bhakti pranidhi satyavitaya namo namaha. Om Bhurvasvah Tatsavitarvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurvasvah Tatsavitarvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurvasvah Tatsavitarvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. We are now concluded with the specific rituals. More rituals of a very small nature shall continue a quick crematory.
Thank you very much, Panditji. You know, it is said that in whatever language you may pray, to whichever form of the divine you may pray, that prayer reaches the soul and helps it on its journey through the afterlife. So thank you very much, Panditji. We really appreciate that. And you may say that prayer in your own mind, and that will be certainly of assistance to the soul as it passes through the afterlife. Akisha had a wish, she expressed a wish to Kiran that we play a song called Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish. So we're going to do that now.
Just lay
Dear family and friends, that was a message directly from Akisha to us all. And I'd just like to read a few lines of that song, just in case it didn't come through very clearly. And the one that touched me especially was, I love you till the day that I die, till the day that I die, till the light leaves my eyes, till the day that I die, I will love you. That's a special message to all of us from Akisha. Thank you. My dear friends, I will now call upon Manoj Raman, Akisha's second brother, who will speak on her behalf and on behalf of his family.
Thank you, Vishnu. Dear family and friends, today I bid farewell to my beloved and dear sister, a sister who fulfilled far more than I could ever expect. Unfortunately, our journey together has ended far too soon. I would like to take a moment to reflect. Akisha Raman is a brand name on its own. At school, I achieved automatic popularity simply because I carried her name. Teachers had already painted my portrait just by knowing who my sister was, and their expectations of me were always set high. Growing up with such an esteemed older sister truly shaped my schooling career. One of the biggest changes came when my sister started working. That was when we could finally afford our first car, a Toyota Corolla, purchased in 1997. A dream car for us at the time, and a car in which I learned how to drive. It meant that we would no longer have to rely on public transport, and from then on, we would always travel together as a family. For those of you who didn't know, Akisha loved her fast cars. The Corolla soon progressed to the RSI and later into a dream car, the BMW 328i, and this was in the early 2000s. As a young adult, I was very fortunate to have been seen driving around in fancy cars, which greatly boosted my social status and confidence. I had a wonderful campus life. Thank you, Akisha. These past few months have truly tested my strength. I've had to face the harsh reality of the unforgiving journey my sister was on. Something I always thought only happened to other people. Never did I imagine how close it could come. Nor did I even expect to face its ultimate power. I could have not predicted it would strike so close to home. I tried desperately to ignore its grip, feeding myself daily with false hope. Something I think comes naturally in such situations. The truth, however, was that this illness was incredibly powerful and very little could be done to stop it. Acceptance became our only option, forcing us to shift our focus sharply on quality of life. A phrase I struggled to accept and could not bring myself to say for a long time. These past few days have been a real eye-opener for me. I never imagined that something so small could humble me so profoundly. If there's a lesson to be learned, it's this: never neglect to check up on your family, especially your siblings. Don't take it for granted that tomorrow will be brighter. Instead, use today as an opportunity you know exists. There's never enough time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manoj. And those words he shared with us, to live in the moment and to never take anyone for granted. And the words he shared that there's never enough time, has also been spoken by many, many great sages of the past and very wise people. So it's something that we would all do very well to take to heart and to remember on this sad occasion. With that, I'd also, whenever I look at Manoj, I remember my late uncle Nandwal, and we had to bid farewell to him also recently, a few years back. And I know that on the other side, he would have been the first person to have received Akisha. So he's there with you, and we can all rest in the comfort knowing that he's there with his beloved daughter as well. We'll have a few minutes and then we'll have another speaker to follow. I'd also like to ask if anybody else would like to say a few words on behalf of Akisha or their families or themselves. I'd like you to invite you forward to speak if you would like. Does anyone would like to say a few words?
Hello everyone, my name is Johar everyone. I was Akisha Welch's nephew. Akisha Welch was the best aunt I could have ever asked for. She was always there to brighten the mood, even when it seemed impossible. I remember staying over at her house in December of last year. She always cared for me. She nurtured me. She was like second mother. And I don't know how to deal the fact that nights like December won't ever happen again. I don't know who else I could go to spend my Christmas nights. I have no one who I can cringe at karaoke with anymore. But I know that she would not have wanted us to stay in mourning forever. She wants us she wants us to celebrate her life and move past. She wants us to be happy. But given the circumstances, it's okay to cry. We'll always miss Akisha Welch. I don't think ever move on from her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Family and friends, it will be amiss of me today not to acknowledge the tremendous role that Graham Welch, her husband, played in the last few days of her life, and also Kieran. Kieran is a student at the University of Pretoria, a student of engineering like I was. I believe he's studying computer engineering in his final year. Kieran, I take my hat off to you for the son you've been for your mom in the last few days, weeks of her life. Kieran took this semester off to care for his mom. He was there, a true devoted son, slept by her hospital bed, massaged her feet, and never left her alone. So thank you, Kieran, for what you've done for mom. Graham, you too, I heard you slept on the floor in the hospital ward and you were there for Akisha. Thank you very much too, for all you have done. Kiara is also a top achiever at school. Kieran too, having done very well. Kiara is in grade 11 at Kiro School. And I'm sure Mom will be very proud of you and Kieran today. And we wish you all the best as you go through the rest of your schooling career, Kiara. Our hearts are with you. It was also Kiara's birthday, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday. So, very sad birthday. Time heals all wounds, and Mom would want you both to live her legacy that she left behind and reach great heights in your lives also. She'll be there to guide and watch you every step of the way. With that, family and friends, I would like to call upon Kieran to say a few words on behalf of the family.
Hello everyone, I'm Kieran, as you probably know from the intro. And I never thought I would have to do a speech on my mother's passing, at least this early in my life. I obviously have known her for 22 years, and she's been with me every step of the way, every achievement, anything I've ever done, she has been there for me. As Uncle Manoja said, buying their first car, she was there with me buying my first car. No matter who you were or how you knew her, she was always there and caring for everyone. For those of you who don't know her work side, very scary lady, terrifying lady. But those of you who don't know her, or for those of you who work with her and don't know her home side, she is the most gracious person I've ever met. There was never a moment she didn't love and care for another person. It's a very sad time due to her passing, but if there's one thing I know about my mom, it would be, as Johar actually said, that she would never want us to be sad forever. She was always such a bright light in a dark room, and she would always want everyone here who came to pay their respects to be happy and have their lives fulfilled, just as she did to my life. And I thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Kieran. On this painful day, it would have been taking a lot of courage for you to say a few words, so we really appreciate that. And knowing my cousin, I never would have thought that at work she was what's the word you use? Difficult boss, but probably also a wonderful person to be around at work too. Thank you. If anybody hasn't paid their last respects, I'll invite you to come forward. One minute. There are just two messages that I would like to read. The first one is from my sister in New Zealand, Ashika. Again, I remember Nana Mama always getting the two names mixed up. He used to always call Akisha Ashika, and he used to call my sister Akisha. Shows the love he had for the both of them. My darling cousin, in our names we share the same letters of the alphabet. Every one of it in our childhood. We share the same struggles and hardship. In our adult lives, we share our successes. In this time of losing you, those we leave behind have fountains and mountains of love for Mami, Gran, Kieran, Kiara, Kumar and Manoj, and your families. You stood out as a quiet yet powerful scholar at Silverdale Primary School. The most talented participant in the lead role of school plays while my dad emceed. We persevered amidst the odds to a successful career woman and family person. Rest well, my warrior princess. Lots of love, Ashika and family, New Zealand. And the next message is from my cousin Rajesh, also from Australia, and his family. Ingrid, Rihanna, Nikhil, and Ivani Raman. They live in Perth, Western Australia. At difficult times like this, words fail to adequately express the many emotions we all feel. Our message to Akisha's immediate family and other loved ones is to know that even though we are far away, we share in your pain. This is a tremendous loss on many levels. As cousins, we hold fond memories of Akisha growing up and schooling in Buffelsdale, Tombat. Over time, we caught up at various family events, always enjoying the time we spent together. Our family was privileged to spend time with Akisha, Graham and the children, some years ago at their home. More recently, we chatted over video calls, and it was heartwarming to see you all again. Akisha has left a legacy of brilliance, high academic and career achievement, often rising above challenges. Akisha was a trailblazer in many ways, taking her love and aptitude for finance and accounting to the highest level as a chartered accountant. There is no doubt she inspired many to choose similar paths, forging ahead, breaking barriers with a sense of adventure, exploring and taking up new opportunities in South Africa and abroad. With her many outstanding achievements, Akisha remained humble, focused on those closest to her, giving her all to her family and loved ones. May her children and others reflect on her short life, emulating the hard work, perseverance, commitment to family, and love Akisha demonstrated. Whilst we are heartbroken at this enormous loss, we know Akisha's legacy will live on. Our deepest condolences to the bereaved loved ones at this time. Much love from Rajesh, Ingrid, and family. Family and friends, I will shortly hand back to Panditji. And if there's anyone who hasn't paid their last respects, you may come forward in the next few minutes. shortly be departing for the crematorium, so I'd just like to invite the close family forward to pay their last respects. You all may take your seats. Pandit Maharaj will now give us a summary of the last rites, and he will perform the last rites of the crematorium. Over to Panditji.
Om Narayanaaya Namaha Govindaya Namaha Om Madhusudanaya Namaha Om Keshwaya Namaha Om Narayanaaya Namaha Om Govindaya Namo Namaha. 5,000 years ago, a warrior stood on a battlefield and questioned his cousin, or Sri Krishna, as to why he is being asked to kill his own relatives who became his enemies. And Sri Krishna answered to him, "Those whom you are about to kill on my behalf are already ordained to be killed by you through my aegis and through my permission. Similarly, all things that are born must die. There is no evidence to the contrary. The largest of the redwood trees in America, some have stood for up to about 5,000 years ago, they too shall drop one day. And from that large tree, new life shall spring. Similarly, I, you, my parents, your parents, children, whoever has come into your life, and whatever community you are born into, death is a certainty. And in Sanatana Dharma, Vedic Dharma, we inure our children, our adolescents, and ourselves to the notion of death. We teach our communities not to fear death. Death for us is a natural process of the soul leaving one residence or one habitat, one body, and entering into the next. A more modern analogy to this would be a person traveling in an aeroplane. All things that go up must come down. There's no aeroplane in the sky forever, neither is there any satellite or spaceship in space forever. No matter how many light years you may be in outer space, at some point you will have to come down. Similarly, the passenger on his journey enters a plane. There he is in his 747. Unfortunately for him, the 747 has to come down to refuel, and he has to go into transit lounges, be there for a short while, and when the journey is ready to resume, he shall resume his journey in the same plane, perhaps in another plane, and to another destination, by whatever route, straight or circuitous. You are continuously as a soul on an eternal journey into the unknown. We say the unknown because life only unfolds itself in front of you as you experience it, second by second, day by day, month by month, year by year, lifetime after lifetime. So we should become educated or aware of the fact that death is a certainty, and we should learn about death and prepare for death. People are running to London, Italy, months beforehand, even years beforehand, preparations are being made. But we ourselves, for our final journeys, there's hardly a day of preparation. What to speak of understanding where you're going, where you are going, and what your journey is all about. I shall summarize all of that in the next few verses from Bhagavad Gita. Om नारायणाय नमः गोविन्दाय नमः मधुसूदनाय नमः ॐ त्वं मदिदेव पुरुषा पुराणस्त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परं निधनं वेदासि वेद्यं च परं च धाम त्वया ततं विश्वमनन्तरूपम्. O Supreme Person, you have been with us since creation and we have been with you. You are the supreme treasure of this vast universe. You are the knower and the knowledge and the final resting place for all beings. You are the infinite presence in whom all things are. You pervade the entire universe. Today we seek courage, fortitude, and shelter in you, Shri Krishna. Om vasansi jirnani yata vihaya navani grinanti naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnanyanyani sanyanti navani dehi. Just as a person discards an old garment and puts on one that is new, so too the soul leaves the body at death and takes on a new one. The soul does not perish with the body. O Lord, may we take courage from this truth of yours. Na jayate mrite va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamani sharire. Never is the soul born, never does it die, unborn and eternal, beyond times gone by or yet to come. The soul does not die when the body dies. O Shri Krishna, may we understand this truth of yours. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapo, na shoshayati marutaha. The soul, no weapon can wound it, no fire can burn it, water cannot wet it, nor can any wind dry it. O Lord, may we find comfort in these truths of yours. Om jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmata pariharte natam shochitum arhasi. All things that are born must certainly die, and out of death must come life. Knowing this, we must desist from sorrow. May we have the strength to do so, O Almighty Lord. All beings are invisible before death. They are invisible again after death. We only see the mortal being in its existing lifespan. O Lord, grant us the wisdom to understand this truth. Om Narayanaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha, Om Madhusudanaya Namaha, Om Vayuranilam Amritam Matetam Bhasmantam Shariram, Om Krato Smara Kritam Smara, Krato Smara Kritam Smara, Om Krato Smara Kritam Smara, Krato Smara Kritam Smara, Om Krato Smara Kritam Smara, Krato Smara Kritam Smara. O Almighty Lord, our souls exist by your mercy. The mortal body that we take to the cemetery shall be reduced to ashes, and it will be disposed of suitably. May we ever remember you in every deed that we perform. O Almighty Lord, we take cognizance of your words, that all material links perish with the death of the body. It is only one's good deeds, dharma, that remains with the soul after death. May this death be a reminder that dharma never be allowed to perish. Om Asatoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमया. All together. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I take your leave. Thank you. Jai Shri Krishna.
Dear family and friends, we've reached the conclusion of our proceedings for today at this venue. We will now prepare to depart for the crematorium. Thank you all very much for coming through to pay your last respects. It is indeed a great comfort to the family, and so many of you have come forward. We really truly appreciate your presence here. Thank you very much. If anybody would like to come forward for the last time, you may do so. We will shortly be leaving this venue.
Come to gentlemen, we ask for all bearers, please.